this is it. The last video of our textbook, chapter 10. And just kind of a summary, of really the whole book and all the things that we've looked at in order to come up with this theory of second language acquisition. And looking at everything, we looked at age and the critical period hypothesis and the idea that, of course, younger is better. And we've looked at just the idea of trying to get kids to learn languages as young of age as possible because they're going to just have that natural ability to pick up languages. And we looked also at first language acquisition, which we can see how all of us just naturally learned our first language through being in this environment. It seems that we have this innate ability to learn language as humans. So it's termed the language acquisition device, the little black box. And we can see it at work, like with kids, and with us when we're kids, that just given this environment of people around us, communication, wanting to make relationships, that we have this ability to learn language. And we just seem to, through some practice, get the pronunciation down, although, as you know, kids often do have sometimes pronunciation difficulties and grammatical difficulties and vocabulary as well. So it's not like it just automatically happens. It actually takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work and a lot of exposure, a lot of input, obviously, from peers and parents and people to give us that input, including the media. And we seem to learn language that way. And so in the second language classroom, usually by the time we're teaching second language, usually they're already teenagers or adults. So we're in a situation where everything's very academic. But we're trying to make the classroom as much as possible a natural learning environment. If a student has a chance to study abroad, of course, it's just this huge advantage. So when we're teaching ESL, for example, in the US with immigrants and foreign students, there's a real advantage because our students are learning kind of inside and outside the classroom, probably learning more outside the classroom than they are in the classroom. But it all kind of works together to build language. And if we go to another country, then, we're in a little different situation where we're the EFL instructor, native speaker example, and that's a great situation for them to be able to have an instructor, who can speak their language as a first language as well. And again, just try to turn the classroom into this fertile environment for learning, and trying to get the students comfortable, as we say, lower that affective filter or the affective aspect of language, so they can be confident and feel like they can make mistakes and enjoy the process, have some fun, be motivated, and talk about interesting things. It's great, to have a relationship, teacher-student relationships. It's great to have a real relationship with students, and it's real communication, real friendship, and that's part of language learning as well. And students also meeting other students and working in groups and performing tasks together and all of those real socially interactive things that work toward this whole language learning experience. And cognitively as well, trying to challenge students to understand grammatical concepts and words, and obviously there'll be some translating and comparing the two languages, and the academic process of reading, going through readings, trying to write, figure out what you're doing wrong. And so we still have those more form-focused type of activities. It's not all just conversation groups and speaking projects and interviewing people outside of class. It's also the more traditional academic, analyzing of language and working on it that way as well. But of course, a big focus on communicating in the classroom with the group and with the other students, knowing that that's how language is naturally learned. And other things, again, trying to get the students have that motivation, self-motivation to really learn. There's so much self-study that can go on too, especially now with computers and the internet. A student, if they have that motivation after class, they can watch a lot of things and watch movies and go to websites and work on pronunciation programs. So there's so much a student can do in their free time that if they have that self-motivation, they can do it. I think also we've talked about that students have different learning styles. So not every student's going to learn the same way. And it is important to consider that there's not this one way to teach or one way to learn, because some students are more visually oriented, for example, and they want to do a lot of reading and writing. Other students more auditory. They have to speak. They want to do a lot of listening, and the kinesthetic learners, having them move around. So it's not like there's this one way, which kind of, you might say, is kind of the art aspect of language learning as opposed to the science aspect. Science would pretty much offer one way, I guess, and then the artistic side would offer maybe different ways that people could learn language. And also just trying to get lots of input so that the student doesn't just have a real limited set of input, just for example, a grammar rule plus some examples, or very limited simplified reading to work through very systematically, but making sure they get a lot of input where they're reading, for example, a novel, which gives them a higher volume of input, even though they're not able to really analyze, every single word, or listening to lectures or movies where they get kind of over their head a little bit. It's not like they're understanding every single word sometimes, but giving them that volume, kind of more volume of input. And writing too, free writing where they get more chance to write. But anyway, focusing on input. And then also output, which is simply giving students a chance to speak and practice and talk and use the language and write. So it's not just all input, but output as well. The students also have different backgrounds. Some students have a real academic background, so they're used to studying and coming out of high school or college. And other students, they've been working for a while or they're currently working, and so they're in a situation where they need that more everyday type English, shopping, going to the doctor. Also, we talked about organizing classes, maybe functionally, so that we can say, today we're going to work on, shopping, or returning something you don't want, or meeting someone new, as the functions of language, as opposed to just topics like sports or food or what you study, which is also great too, to have topics, but always remembering that we're trying to get the students to be able to function also in the language. And so again, from the beginning, we're just trying to, since we already have a lot of ideas about activities in the classroom, we're just trying to take a step backwards and talk about what research has been done, which of these methods are working, why are they working, do we need to change our methods based on research, instead of just assuming that people learn a traditional way, kind of questioning everything. Also, we have to figure out how to measure our success. Is our method working? Is our theory right? And making sure we have assessments in place so we can measure and see if what we're doing in the long run actually works to help people to learn the language. But all of this working together to create this kind of natural approach to language learning, so that, as we said before, people can kind of acquire the language or pick up the language as opposed to just learn it, and making that distinction as well. So that's the end of chapter 10, And best of luck in putting together your methods and your language learning activities. And I'm sure you'll go forward with the confidence that you've done your research, you've heard from the experts in the field, that have all the linguists and educators, and that you have a much stronger foundation for what you want to do in the classroom.